Hello, this is Tammy Bashirs from South Carolina Appleseed Legal Justice Center. Today is September the 15th, 2017, and we're going to be talking about how to renew your DACA. It's very important that the DACA renewal be done correctly, as there are risks if it's not submitted exactly as immigration wants it. Because under this current administration and the tight deadlines, anything that does not meet the rules may automatically be rejected. So you should be on this webinar if you are someone who currently has DACA. This is about South Carolina. Granted, this is federal law, but I will mention a couple of South Carolina things. You can renew if you currently have DACA and your status will expire before March 5th, 2018. You can look at your EAD, that's your work permit, and know when your status expires. If your status expires after that date, you cannot renew. For those of you who can renew, your application must be accepted by October the 5th, 2017. It is not necessarily clear what accepted means, but many of us in the legal profession believe accepted does not mean postmarked. To us, it means immigration has actually received your DACA renewal packet. And erring on the side of caution, we're advising that perhaps immigration officials have actually opened it, if possible. We know they will be inundated by renewals, but that would be the best practice. It is best to consult an immigration attorney if you have really specific questions, and you'll see a couple of things in here I flagged where you would need a private consultation due to some of the consequences of how you might answer that question. Do not go to a notario. They are not lawyers in the United States. You have no recourse if they do your paperwork wrong or give you the wrong advice. This will be general, and it will discuss the forms you need to submit for DACA renewal, what issues may come up, and we're going to go over the questions. Most of them you should be familiar with if you're doing a renewal because you've already done this, but it's important to make sure things are correct. Let's talk about the materials that you will need to complete the forms. You will need your South Carolina driver's license. You will need your EAD, which is your work permit, your social security number or card, your copy of your initial DACA application. If you've renewed in the past and this will be renewal again, make sure you also have a copy of that application, your passport and your I-94 if you left the country while you had DACA, and then your receipt notice from your last DACA acceptance. All these documents may have information you need to help you complete the forms, and it's better to have them ready than realize you need them later. The forms we are going to go over today will be the G1145, the I-821D, the I-765, and the I-765WS, which is the worksheet. It is crucial that you have the most current forms, so always check immigration's website. You can see that link there, and you can also just generally go to their website and pull down the Forms tab and make sure you must have the most current version. Immigration is very strict on that and will reject the wrong form version. So let's start with the G1145. Even though this is an optional form, it's a very good form. And what it does, it's a free form that you paper clip to the stack of all the other forms. And it's simply a way to receive text messages and email alerts regarding your application status. You put your name, should be your name as it appears on your EAD, unless you've legally gotten married and changed their name and you have proof of that. I would stick with your name on your EAD. You can put in your email address and your phone number. You really do. I have received text messages from this when I've submitted paperwork. The other things you may want to do to help make sure you know what's going on with your case is you can open an online account if you've not already done so. They do have the instructions online, and it will say something like check your case status. It's good to open that free account. And we're also always remember, if you change your personal mailing address, change that address with immigration in case you get important letters. You can call, you can email, you can send in a special form. They have all that on their website. If you do not make sure they have your current address, you could miss a biometrics appointment or other important information, and that would have very bad consequences. Now we're going to move on to the main form that is crucial for your application. It's the one that will take the most time to fill out, and that is the I-821D. That is the main DACA form that you're probably familiar with. Again, make sure you have the correct form. Check the website. You may also want to review the instructions just to make sure you understand everything. Their instructions are extremely explicit. Instructions say you can type or use black ink. I would err on the side of caution, type the form online, and then use black ink to sign it. If you type it rather than handwrite things, you do not have the opportunity for an immigration official to say they could not understand your handwriting, they could not understand a number you wrote, or a letter. So typing would be preferred. For the first part, some of this, is very quick and easy. You should check that you're doing a renewal, because that's all immigration is taking right now. So check renewal. Type in, again, the very general. You can look at your EAD for the date that your DACA expires. Type in your name as it appears on your EAD. Again, that's very important. You should also make sure your Social Security number and card have the same name. Question 4 simply relates to your address. If you want to get the mail in care of someone else, that's fine. If you're worried about someone stealing it, or you are just concerned in general, but I would make that really clear on the form. Otherwise, you may just want to have it come straight to your house so you always know what's going on. The next questions simply relate to your alien ID number, your Social Security number, and those, again, the alien ID number should be on your EAD. You can have your Social Security card in front of you and check that out. You should have the same answers relating to where you were born. The only thing on the information through 6 through 13 that may have changed is your marital status. The next questions are asking if you go by any other names. You can type that in there if you do. And there's also a biometrics piece, and that is dealing with questions 15 through 20. That helps when they actually process your EAD and you go and get your fingerprinting done. And again, unless something's drastically changed, those should be about similar to what you wrote last time. Now, part 2 gets a little tricky. And you'll see part 2 there, we actually have something bolded in red. Part 2 is asking about if you have continued to reside in the U.S. since June 15, 2007. Your answer should be yes. Now, you are allowed some absences, and we'll talk about this more in depth as the form goes on, but you're not allowed to travel a lot, and not without permission, and not for long periods of time. If you've been doing a lot of traveling, you didn't go with permission, you may want to check on that with a lawyer. Generally, though, most people should check yes, and they should be okay. If you have to check no to that question, that you have not been continuously present, then you need to stop right now and speak to an immigration lawyer about what those absences were, why you weren't continuously present, and if you should continue completing this form. For the next part, this is simply dealing with addresses. If you wrote a number of old addresses on your initial form, or if you had another renewal, you don't have to put all those down. This would be if you've moved since your last form was accepted. So you may not have anything to add since your last move, and that's fine. We're going to get to a little bit trickier piece here, and that's dealing with, as you can see, the right-hand side, asking about travel information. And this is asking if you have left the United States since your last 821D, your last DACA was approved. Now, if you left with advanced parole, you can put those dates in there, when you left, when you came back, and you don't have to actually have your passport, but you would want to make a photocopy of the stamps in your passport, of your passport itself, showing when you left and came back. And also, it'd be ideal to make a copy of your I-94 showing those travel dates and entering the dates as shown, entering your passport information as shown if you had advanced parole and left. If you have left without advanced parole, then you may have some issues, and we'll see some of those questions come up. You can see that part 3 deals with initial request only. That doesn't deal with you, and you don't have to answer it. Now, looking at part 4 on the right-hand side, this is where it gets into more of questions that may cause problems. These all relate to criminal and background. If you have to answer yes to any of those questions, then you need to stop and talk to a lawyer. These answers to these questions being yes could place you at great risk with our immigration system, and a lawyer will need to sit down and talk to you about if it impacts you. For example, maybe on one, you got some kind of minor violation that does not affect your DACA renewal. You don't know that until you talk to an experienced immigration lawyer who also knows criminal law and can answer those questions for you. Usually minor traffic tickets are okay, like speeding, as long as you don't have like one that's related to drugs or alcohol. But for other things, you really do need to check, because not only that, if it's more than speeding, you have to submit all sorts of court records and dispositions from the court, and you really do need an expert opinion on that matter and if you should proceed. For the next page, this is about who helped you fill out this form, essentially. And if you're following along with me, then probably you're completing this on your own, and no one else prepared it for you. You're just doing this by yourself. If that's the case, you can simply check, yes, I understand English. That's box 1A. You prepared it yourself, so there would be no preparer or interpreter, and you would sign in black ink as immigration requires. Do not use a different color pen. Use black. And enter the date as they have it formatted. And you would simply enter, hey, I'm the requester, I'm signing this form, and then just enter your phone number and email address as asked. And it does want to ensure that you see you're telling the truth about everything and completing this accurately and honestly, and that you are eligible to fill out this form. For the next one, this would be for additional addresses, for additional information, and all sorts of other things you can put in here. You do want to put in your full legal name, and if you can check on 3D NA or no additional evidence or not applicable. Make sure your alien ID and your name is in there correctly. You want to do this to be on the safe side, because any little mistake with immigration could cause your form to be rejected. Now, that was the I-821D, which is the main form that goes to immigration. In order to complete this packet, you also have to do your work permit at the same time, and that's the I-765, and we'll also talk about the I-765WS. Again, it's crucial. Make sure you have the correct form. Make sure you also complete the I-765WS. That is mandatory to show you need employment. Again, black ink or type, preferably type it and sign it in black ink. The first question is not necessarily numbered, but what you're asking is for renewal. So you would check the box that says renewal. And then for the other questions 1 through 10, those are all biographical information like you entered on your I-821D. All those answers should match what you wrote on your I-821D. For question 11, this should be a yes, unless you've never applied for a work permit before. If you have, which most of you should have an EAD, then you can look at your formal approval notice to know what office granted you that work permit and the date. For questions 12 and 13, your answer should be the same unless you left the country while you had DACA. If you left with advanced parole and came back, then you can enter that date and the last time you entered the U.S. with DACA and where. Otherwise, that information should not have changed from your initial form. And this is just some of the things we've been going over. Now, to continue that, for question 14, if you have never left the United States while having DACA, then please refer to your initial application for the answer. If you left with advanced parole and returned, your answer should be DACA. Question 15, the answer should be DACA because that is your current status. For question 16, this is simply asking what law lets you get a work permit. And the code section is for DACA is C33. That is what you must write. You cannot write any other code in there or they will reject your form. Questions 17 through 19 do not pertain to you. And then the last section is asking if everything is true, to enter the date and your phone number. If someone else prepared it for you, they would have to be involved. If you had an interpreter again, they would have to be involved. But it's probably just you doing this on your own. So you would sign it in black ink and date it correctly. Something else that is in the instructions is you do have to attach 2 identical color photographs taken of yourself that are passport size. For immigration, they must show a full face, frontal view, and off-white to an off-white background. You can go to some places that specialize in passport photos and get them done, and that would be best if you can do that just to make sure they meet the right size. On the back of these photos, using pencil, print your name. You can print your alien receipt number. And also, you should probably print your alien ID number on each photo. That way, there's no mix-up. If someone's reviewing a lot of applications, they know those belong to your packet. Those must be submitted, or you could risk rejection of your application. Now the worksheet is also crucial, and you'll see here a photo of the worksheet. The worksheet is simply asking you, why do you need to work? Immigration wants that, even though we all know people need to work for a living. Again, this will be your basic information. Make sure all your names match. What is your current income? What are your expenses? What kind of assets do you have? And this is about you. Don't talk about household income, talk about your income. Don't talk about household assets, talk about your assets. And then put in your own words why you need to work. It can be, I have a child, I need to pay my bills, I have a house or a rent payment or a car payment, I am saving for college, I help support other people in my family. Whatever pertains to you. And just write the truth and make sure you do that. If you do not complete this worksheet, they will reject your application and say you didn't prove that you had an economic necessity to work. And the last thing we're going to go over is let's double check some things. Let's think about making sure everything's correct. So before you mail this packet, do you have the mandatory $495? I recommend a money order rather than a personal check, just in case something happens. With a money order, you know the money's there, made out exactly like this, and you can double check the instructions and they show it's written this way. U point, S point, Department of Homeland Security. It must be written that way per the directions. If you write it out some other way, you cannot abbreviate department, for example. They will reject your application. So double check that application, double check the instructions, and you can pull up that question and make sure I wrote it out correctly. The 2 passport size photos, the correct mailing address for where you're sending this. The DACA site has the addresses where you send this based on your location. So when you pull up South Carolina, you'll see exactly where to send it. And it also has a different address for if you're sending it by regular mail or if you're sending it by FedEx or UPS. To meet the strict timelines, I recommend, if you can, FedEx or UPS, and get strict proof of delivery in some format from those companies. If you have to send it by the U.S. Postal Service, I would make them have some kind of receipt they have to sign at immigration to give you proof that they got it. And do check, based on the way you sign it, based on those addresses on the DACA site and the USCIS site, they do show which address gets the FedEx and UPS and which address gets regular USPS, Postal Service mail. Make sure all the forms are completed and signed in black ink. Make sure you've answered all the questions that pertain to you. I would triple check the information on that form, and if you have anyone else that you trust, have them go through and see if things match, like did the alien ID number on this question match the alien ID number on this one? Just can't hurt. Make copies of everything before you mail in the originals, because this is all you'll have. And if you ever need to go back and review it or need it for some reason, you need to make sure you know what you wrote. Now I will do my best to answer and assist you. I can't take all calls and everything all the time, but if you really do have the consequences where you may be dealing with something more than a speeding ticket, or the section where you have left without advance parole, or have periods of time that would bar you from continuous presence, anything that would make you a security risk, you need to sit down and talk to an immigration lawyer to find out if you should ask for renewal. We thank you for your time, and we will be keeping up current on this information, and you can check our website at scjustice.org to get those alerts. Thank you.